Jason, I know you've been reading about the DeepSeek news as much as I have, and I think you said that you're starting to get some questions from your friends and family. What are
Indeed.
some of the questions that you're getting?
Have you used it? Is it safe? Or what do you think about it? Is it for real? Those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we shared an article pretty early on in CopyClub with some thoughts on whether or not DeepSeek has, embedded Chinese propaganda, or is it something that looks like it was trained off of O1?
Which is
Uh,
ChatGPT's model.
yeah, exactly. Um, So I actually just created an account and started using it because I realized I don't have to make it my default model in order to just start to get a feel for it. Um, and with all LLMs, I'm mindful of what kind of information I'm sharing with them from a privacy standpoint. Um, the UI looks a lot like O1 and ChatGPT 4. Um, so I can certainly see why initial impressions are, oh, this must be a copy. Um, for a longer video later, I might start to share a little bit of the like side by side evaluations, and we can comment a little more on whether or not it's a actual clone of the contents or just the UI. Those are some of my initial impressions.
Yeah. For me, my initial impressions are that all LLMs have some pretty sketchy accountability. Like, I don't know how much I trust any of them to receive my data and do trustworthy things with it. Next, O1 or ChatGPT, that's Anthropic Claude, that's Google Gemini. Um, so I'm aware of what I put in, and I'm thoughtful of that. I think that it's interesting that DeepSeek is technically something you can download and run on your own hardware, and that changes some of the elements of risk. But we're still in the early stages of this technology, and I'm still not incredibly sure like what their terms of service and privacy policies mean when you're running it yourself. I know that they have some really interesting, like really aggressive intellectual property statements in their terms of service that say anything you put in and comes out is theirs. You are liable for whatever you put in and comes out, accountability wise. There's a lot of things that aren't necessarily tragically different than what OpenAI would provide in their terms of service, but there's an element of like, I know the US culture and the business systems here. I'm not that familiar with what's happening in China and how those businesses and humans are interacting. So I'm cautious of that.
Yeah.
I also know that like Quen, another Chinese model, and DeepSeek are both really reluctant to talk about like Tiananmen Square or Taiwan. They have really opinionated views, but Western models have opinionated views about bombs.
Yeah.
Not that they're good, but like there's censorship in our models too. They don't talk about sex. They don't talk about drugs. They don't talk about dangerous things. So to pretend that only China has censorship in their model isn't sincere either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm
again,
interested.
devil you know, devil you don't is still comes into play.
Yeah. And we'll need some time to kind of sort about what those differences are and then have a little more uh, AI literacy when we're using them. Um, and then certainly another question for me is if it's very clear that the news represents that the moat around uh, an AI model where billions of dollars have been invested is not significant. And so even if the approach was something like training the model off of uh, the larger model, which is actually a pretty common technique used in making smaller, more nimble versions of AI, it still just goes to show that it's not a big moat. And that has a open question for me about whether or not the ongoing investment in AI will continue um, in the way that it has been. I think it will, just because of the pure interest in getting to sort of AGI and ASI. But it's a real factor that has become clear because of this whole news cycle. Um, Much lower cost to train up. And again, that's also if you believe the numbers that are being shared. Um, I'm whether or not the exact numbers are true. It's probably pretty true that they didn't spend anywhere near as much money. Um, and then I think about things like the interest and value of open source and a lot of the conversations that have been had around it uh, are that it's like the democratization of knowledge and value. And in past cycles, that has not been what has happened to open source technology. They tended to be most of the value going to sort of large corporations. So it'll just be interesting to see, is this different? Because we're dealing with a different type of tech. Um, so those are some of the other things that I've been reading about and interested on this topic.
Yeah. More than anything, though, I feel that it's really exciting to recognize that the technology that just 2 years ago was unimaginable is now something that can be built for single digit millions, and that information is now public, and that is both thrilling and scary at the same time.
Yeah,
But no matter what, like there is a genie that is out of the bottle now in terms
yeah,
of really sophisticated technology for not that much anymore, whether it's only in thanks to what OpenAI did to get there, but they got there. The rest of the world saw what needed to be done to get there as well. And now many people can get there for a lot less. And I think that regardless has the opportunity to expedite the type of advancements which are already getting logarithmic in scale.
yeah,
Um, and the amount of and just the like not that like smaller people with less budgets can run these locally and have amazing local services now
yep,
for maybe $10,000 or $20,000, which before would have been 80 to $100,000.
yeah,
So now, I'm really excited about what my communities can have when we have these set up in our backyards.
yeah. Yeah, and then an interesting is like, is the there where we are at the final there? And will it take billions of dollars to get to the next there? Uh, does a lack of moat mean that we won't, which isn't necessarily good or bad, just a potential implication of what it means to have a not very significant moat around a business that took a lot of money to find the first sort of set of plateaus. And I also think it is interesting that we're seeing more models that can run larger context windows on your local machine. I know you were saying that with Quen, you're able to just off of your laptop get up to 75,000 tokens when most of the open source models have been limited to 16,000 tokens, um, while it being capable of a million if you've got the RAM and GPUs to be able to run it.
Yeah. Again, what was incredibly expensive and very hard to get a hold of a year ago is now I downloaded it in 15 minutes,
Yeah,
running it on my hard drive.
that's wild.
So, yeah. All right. If you like this conversation, come join us at Copy Club. We talk about this stuff all the time.
Peace.